Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Tara. I make videos about digital planning and different ways that you can get creative with your iPad, or at least that's what I've been saying for years. It's finally time that I start acting on that. So some of you guys have probably noticed that I've been saying that in my intro, but I've really only been doing digital planning on this platform, and it's just been really hard for me to find the time to make all of the other videos that I want to make. And so now I'm just saying, no more excuses, and I'm making lives and we're just sharing. So I'm actually really excited for today's video. We are going to be sharing, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my process for making handwritten fonts, and this has been highly requested. A lot of people have been asking me for a tutorial on this, and so I'm here to share that with you guys. A lot of the questions I get are how I make my fonts, how I make my digital planners, how I make my digital stickers. So in case you didn't know, I actually do have a course that I offer on digital sticker making and the program I use, which is Affinity Designer. And I swear by this program. I feel like the whole process was like completely game-changing for me. I used to make all of my stickers in Procreate, and it's like the difference in how long it takes is day and night. It is vastly different. And so I wanted to be able to share that whole process, and so I did create a course around that. That was my number one priority. So I'll leave the information about that in the description in case you do want to check out that course, that one that is actually done. But I haven't had time to make a font making course or a digital planner making course, and so here we are with the live streams. I'm going to take you guys through my process today. Very excited. And honestly, this is the process that earned me my first $500 on Etsy. It's the process that I continued to use, and I still use about 90% of it to this day. And that has helped me to earn, like, just from fonts alone, upwards of like $6,000 or $7,000 on Etsy. So I'm sure people who are better at SEO and general marketing and all of that are going to be able to achieve way more than I did, but this is the process to make fonts to actually do that. So that's what I want to share with you guys today. Okay, so if you do want to do this, the very first thing that you're going to need is you're going to need the app iFontMaker. Now this is a paid app. The app is $7.99, but in my opinion, having an app that costs $7.99 to make while still giving you the opportunity to make your own fonts is, like, to me, it's a no-brainer. I think there are other fonts on the market, other font apps on the market, and they are a little more expensive than that, but this is not too bad considering the cost of a font typically is somewhere between like $5 and $15. And so if you can make even one of your own, you're basically paying for itself in this app. And I actually downloaded this app, again, iFontMaker. It's in the App Store. I downloaded this when I was living in China. I was working there. I was there for 3 years in Shanghai, and I was teaching English. And my students, who were 2nd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade at the time, they absolutely loved seeing my fonts on the PowerPoints and stuff that we would use in class, or any like homework assignments or something that I would give. So I would make these handwritten fonts, and I really didn't know anything about making a font at that point. I was just playing around with this app, iFontMaker. And I don't think it cost $7.99 back then, but I could be wrong. But I ended up learning a lot through that process, and actually one of the very first fonts that I ever sold on Etsy was an iteration of one of the fonts that I just made willy-nilly in that app. So I'll actually share my screen with you really quickly, and you can take a look. The very first font that I ever made, I called it Passion Print, and that's this first line. This is the Passion Print font, and this is it again in all caps. And yeah, I just kind of scribbled in this app. I had no idea what I was doing, and I made this, and I used this with my students. So you can, at the very least, make this with me today. Super simple. But if you want to take it the next step and really fine tune it, you can take, like I ended up taking all these letters. You can see the similarities. I took all these letters and then I just started adjusting them and perfecting them a little bit more as I began to learn a little more about font making. And this is my Barista font, which was my very first bestseller on Etsy, but it is literally just an iteration of the font that you see above it, which was the very first font I ever just made playing around with like a random stylus on my iPad. So very cool. I hope that that excites you guys a little bit to know that you can do that. So if you would like to take the time to download that app really quickly, we're going to start jumping in and explaining things right away. Okay, so let's jump into that. And I also want to check and see what's going on here. So give me 1 second. Okay. I was trying to see where the little comment window is. I've lost you guys. Oh no. It's somewhere. I will find you guys. So much trouble trying to do this all by myself, but okay. I'll check it out later. We'll just jump right into making this because I don't want to waste too much time trying to figure out how to turn that window back on. So I'm going to share my iPad screen. Again, the name of that font is iFontMaker, which I already have pulled up here. And this is actually my Barista font document. So we will talk about some of the breakdown of some of the things here, just so you can get an idea, and then we'll jump into a brand new document and we'll start making something. So the first thing here is each of these, you can see, is like its own little space to write each letter. So it has a font underneath you can kind of see, and you can use this as a guide if you would like. We'll get into that more in a second. But that can kind of help you know which letter you're working on in each of these little windows, and you can tap the letters and navigate between them. Also, down at the bottom, there are little arrows on the far left and the far right, and this can just help you toggle between each of these letters. Above that, you can see like a little slider bar with like a minus sign and a plus sign, and then like mine says 52. This is the size of the stroke. So I was using a size 52 here. And then you can tap on the 3 dots, and if you change the stroke, this will allow you to apply that stroke width to all of the strokes in the document if you want, which I find to be very helpful if I'm playing around with how thick or thin I want the font to look. And you can also just scale the stroke weight here by like percentage with the little slider there. We have also down at this very bottom bar, we've got like the scissors, so you can cut something or you can copy it if you have something selected. We have an undo and redo button next to that. And then you can also tap this T here on the left side, and you can change the font that is underneath. So again, we'll get into that in like the fresh document, but I just wanted to show you what all is here. And then there's also these different settings here, which we'll work on as we get into the font making, but you don't really need a whole lot of these all that much. I very rarely use these, but when you are on the cursor, you can actually tap on one of these and like adjust it on its own. We've got this like pen tool, which I never really use. We've got this gesture to scale or rotate, so you can use your fingers and like pinch, and you can make something bigger or smaller. And then here we've got our guides, and we will use this at the very beginning to set up our document, which we're going to do in just a few seconds, but then I don't really touch it the rest of the time. So in the paintbrush is when we're actually doing the writing. So the key things that I typically end up using are just the paintbrush here for when I'm writing my font, the little cursor if I ever need to make any adjustments, and the guides at the very beginning. But for the most part, I don't touch the other tools all that much, but it is good to know what they do just in case. In the upper right hand corner, we have our share and export, and this is where you will ultimately configure and build your font once all of the settings are all made and you've filled in all of these little windows. The font poster I don't really find super relevant, but I don't know. You might click on that and see what it does and see if it's helpful for you at all. But then we also have this globe, which tells us our character sets. And so you can turn on different extensions, different Alphabets, I guess, is maybe the simplest way to put this in like beginner terms. So the regular Latin alphabet has 99 glyphs, and then there's some accent glyphs, which I have turned on. But you can scroll through here and you can add in some other characters. You can see like here, you could do Japanese. And then there are these things called ligatures, but that is something we're not going to address today. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future font video. It's not totally necessary, especially for a handwritten font. If we're just doing something that's like a print font, which is just singular letters and not any combinations of letters or any variations of style, we're good here. Yeah, so we're just going to keep it simple, and let's go ahead and actually start jumping into the fun stuff here. So we're going to hit the back button, and then I have this whole space of like fonts that I'm often just playing around with fonts. I just think it's a good time, and I make weird, funny things. This one, Midnight Magic, is one that I made for free, and that one is in my freebie vault. So if anybody wants this one, I know it's not that time of year anymore, but if you want it, it's a free font that I designed, and you can do that by subscribing to my freebie vault. Okay, what we're going to do is we are going to, you can edit these too if you want to clean it up. You can hit edit, and then, I don't know, mess with some of those features, but I am just going to tap the new button here, and we're going to start a brand new font. So we are going to address the vocabulary first. So here, if you tap on the thing that looks like a bunch of layers, this is how we're going to adjust our guides, and this is going to be our first lesson in vocabulary. So the yellow line here that's underneath the A is called a baseline, and it's nice because these are labeled for you, which is going to make things a lot easier for you to follow along. But the baseline here, that is going to stay where it's at, but you can drag the other guides. So this next guide here above the baseline, this is our X height, and you can imagine that this is how tall the letter X would be, a lowercase x. And so that's going to be really helpful in drawing all of your lowercase letters, and keep that in mind. So you can give your font a little style. The consistency is what's going to help a lot. So in my cheeky collegian font, my X height is quite high, and my like descenders and ascenders, which we'll talk about in just a second, they don't have a lot of variation because I have it so that everything's really quite consistent all the way across the font. But most letters don't look like that. I think if you have seen my cheeky collegian font, which most of you have, you're probably aware that it defies a lot of the rules. And the X height is really quite similar to the top of all of the other letters. So the top of all the other letters, this is called our cap height, and you can adjust this as well. So for me and my cheeky collegian font, these were super close together. But it's totally up to you how you want to do this. So you can set whatever feels good for the style that you're going for. And then we have our ascender and our descender, and these are going to move as one. So the ascender, I typically don't like to have it too far higher than the cap height because I think that looks a little bit crazy, but that's a personal preference. Again, it all comes down to style and what look you're going for in the end. But the ascender, this is where like the top of your, like the stem for your B or your T or an H or an L, these have these lines that extend up to the ascender line, this very top line. And the cap height is how tall your capital letters are. So imagine, like, do you really want the L, the top of the L, to extend that high above the rest of your capital letters or not? Typically, I like to just have like a little bit of room. I think it looks nice with just a little bit, but I don't personally like for them to have a big gap. But again, this just depends on the style that you've decided you want to go on. But your cap height is for the top of your capital letters, and the ascender is for those stems that come up on letters like D, B, H, L, K. These letters are going to extend up just a little bit. So I like to keep these a bit closer. So I might bring this up and bring this here. So I'll put my cap height pretty similar to where the cap height of this letter A is. And then you can decide if you want your X height higher, do you want it like lower? It's really up to you how you want it. I might go with something a little higher here. And then the other things that you want to know, a serif font is one that has these little like feet on them. So I'll find one in here. For example, Times New Roman is a classic example of a serif font. So if you look at this, at the bottom of the A, there's these little feet. It's the simplest way to describe them. These little things that kind of like pop off out of the side or on the bottom. And a sans serif font is something that is without serifs. So sans is the French word for without. So a sans serif font is without serifs. So that would be something like your traditional, like, I don't know, like a Helvetica or an Arial font, which most people are quite familiar with. Is that not on here? Oh, Arial, yes, should be. Quite basic. So that's basic vocabulary. So if you want to add some serifs to your font, you can. If you want to go for like a little bit of a typewriter effect or something fun, like a slab serif is something where the serifs are really like blocky. They look like a carnival fonts, I think, are commonly like have a slab serif, just as an example. Yeah, they're really fun. So thank you to everyone who is here. I need to find this comments window. I'm struggling with that. I can try to pull that up. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh hey. The app is iFontMaker. Sorry, I was really slow, I think, at responding to that. iFontMaker. Can I actually comment in the chat? iFontMaker. Yay! Okay, I can. I'm still learning a little bit here, so I'm glad I can actually communicate with you guys. So iFontMaker is the name of the app. It's $7.99 in the App Store, just to reiterate what I said before at the beginning. And yes, it does cost money, but when you think about the cost of like other fonts, it really kind of pays for itself pretty quickly. And this is how I made the very first font that I ever listed on Etsy has made like $500. And then I only continued to make more through other fonts that I've made. And so it more than pays for itself. So I definitely recommend it. I think it's great if you have any interest in selling a font. And if you just have an interest in buying fonts, it still pays for itself because you can make your own. So I think it's well worth it, but it's not enough. There's no affiliate anything here. I just really like the app. So let's go ahead and actually start now. So we're gonna hit, now that we've decided on our guides. Wow, words are hard sometimes. You can actually zoom out a little bit here if I come back to my pen, and I can see this is how far my descender goes. Like I said, your ascender and your descender line, they move as one. So if you want everything a little bit higher, you'll have to come to your guides and increase that ascender. If you want, let's say your descender to be like shorter, which could be a stylistic choice, completely up to you. And then I would bring my cap height up quite a bit higher. And I don't know, maybe I'll put this here now. That'll work for me. And then, of course, if you want, you can play around with other fonts. So like one of the things you really want to focus on is consistency. And also you can see as you tap on these fonts, it is going to change your guides in the background. So just another thing to keep in mind. But if you want your things to be like, we want things to be consistent within the guides, but also you want to keep them angled consistently. So if you want everything like straight, do you want everything at like a 30-degree angle? Like how do you, or 45-degree angle, or like 60, I don't know, whatever. If you want to play around with these angles, you just want to be consistent. And I'll show you some ways to kind of hack that and keep it more consistent and make it a little more professional that I didn't know from the very beginning. But yeah, I think I'm going to stick with Arial Italic because I want something that's a little more angled. Maybe I might regret this. I don't usually make a whole lot of angled fonts, and I'm just going to make sure I have these where I want them based on what I had decided before. Okay, and we're just going to start writing. So with the paintbrush that's down here, you can also tap on this bar down here, and it allows you to adjust like the widths of the brushes, like the personality that it has. So it doesn't look like it while you're drawing it, but once you tap off of it, you're going to end up with like a different texture. So that's kind of fun if you want to play around with that. I'm going to undo both of these. Let's take a look at some other ones. So that one's kind of fun. It's very like brush, I don't know, like markery. And then we've also got some shapes. So these I find are more helpful if you're doing something decorative, or like when it comes to drawing the like dot for an eye or the semicolon or something like that. Having these available to you is really helpful, because otherwise it can be a really big pain in the ass. So pain in the butt. So remember that you have that option available to you. I didn't know I was going to curse on the internet, so okay. We're going to find a brush. I'm going to move on. I'm just going to use a basic one just for the purpose of today's video. And I think I'm going to, I don't want it that thick. Let's make it a little thinner. And I'm going to start from my baseline. And remember, like, you can have a little style to it. And, you can give it like a little bit of an angle. You can give it a little swoop. You can add little like circles at the end or whatever, just have some fun. Give it a little bit of style, or just be super basic to begin with. And like I said, the very first font that I ever made, I'll come back to it, this one. Not that. Oh no, where'd it go? Did I close out of it? I probably did. Maybe not. Here we go. There. This one, the top one that you see, like I didn't know any of the things that I've just told you, and I literally just quickly wrote with hand lettering in each of these letters. I didn't pay any attention to any of the guides, really. As you can see, like, look at the O in dog and the G. Like, these should normally be similar in height. They're not, because I didn't follow any rules. But if you look at when I went and I cleaned up that, the D, the O, and the G, you can see they all go to the same place. The G and the Y here, they extend to the same descending line. So, yeah, progress, But it's the same font. I just cleaned it up. All right, let's come back here. So, that was literally just me scribbling, though. So if you wanted to just scribble through all of these, you can. And I'm not going to spend, like, a ton of time making the perfect font here, just because, timing. And I think I might extend my B beyond the X height just a little bit. This will probably be the same height where my, my A gets crossed, probably pretty similar to where this B is. So we can take a look at that and see how close we are. They're not super close. So what you can do is grab the cursor, and this is like a move or like a transform tool. And you can come in here and you can select the nodes. And this little X here allows you to delete that. So you can get rid of one, and you can play around with these two. And this just helps you, again, to fine-tune that font. Working with nodes can be a little bit tricky when you first get started, which is, again, why my very first example did not contain any of that. But then as I started to learn a little bit more and I wanted to fine-tune it, I started to adjust some of these nodes. And it just allows you to really figure out where you want to get those letters going. So today, if this is your very first font that you're making, don't worry too much about this. You can always like undo and redo until you draw something that you like. But if you want to try to move nodes, if you want to explore that a little bit, then by all means, go for it. More power to you. I think that this is maybe angled a little bit too much, so I'm just going to bring it out a tiny bit. And I'm going to come back to my brush, and I think that that looks a little bit better. My A is a little wonky here, so I can grab the square here and hit the X, and that's just going to delete that. And you can add in another node by hitting that little slash mark. So that's another thing to keep in mind if you want to mess with things a little bit more. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the letter C, and we're just going to work our way through here. So I'm going to do that and chat with you guys and hang out, and yeah, we're just going to do this. So, and I'm kind of using the Arial italic to help guide the direction of my writing, but not focusing too much on it. And I want to kind of try to mimic, so letters that have similarities, you want them to look pretty similar. So what I could do for this one if I wanted is I could come to the scissors down here at the bottom and hit copy all. And I can come over here to this D. And what we can do is use the cursor and we can just delete these pieces here. And coming back to our paintbrush. Oh no, why did it not work? Let's come back, let's copy this. Again, we're just gonna copy all and come back to the D. And now, I don't know why it wasn't there before, it should have been. But now if we tap those scissors, it says paste. So we can paste that here. And then what I can do for consistency, I can tap on this top one and I can grab this node and just bring it down to the bottom here. And I can just kind of drag this out a little bit. And this is gonna help me, I don't know, just with a little consistency. It doesn't make everything the same, but what it can do is it allows me to have the connection points here where like the D and the curve of the D and the stem here where they meet. It allows it to look a little similar to the placement of the B as well. So if you have similar letters, you can use pieces of them in order to keep them consistent. So another thing that I like to do for consistency reasons is with the cursor tool, I will tap on, let's say like this stem here, and I'm gonna copy this. And for every letter that has a stem, we can just go through and paste it. So the E and the F are gonna end up being very similar. So I'm gonna hold off on the F and I'm just gonna leave that piece there for the E. And we're gonna jump to our H and we're gonna paste and I'm gonna move it over. And we are also going to paste another one and it's gonna be right there. And again, you have some freedom here to decide like how far apart you want these to be. You don't have to copy that font that's underneath. In fact, I advise trying to get a little bit creative on your own. But let's go ahead and just kind of keep pasting away. I am gonna put this here for the J. It's gonna look a little bit funny, but I'm gonna put this here for the J because eventually what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna curve out the bottom of the J. But this is a good starting point so that the angle can remain the same. So I'm just doing this so that it's more consistent as we go through all of the letters. I hope that makes sense. Like I want my font to all be angled the same way. So this is a really easy way to help ensure that if it's not the easiest thing for you to just do. So we're just gonna drag this over. The one thing I wish that there was, and if anyone's familiar with this app and you find out that this exists and I just can't find it, I wish that there was like a magnetics tool so that as you pulled it over, it would stay in line as opposed to, usually I end up having to use the guides. There's like a faint grid underneath. I don't know if you can tell, but yeah, I find it to be a little frustrating that there's no magnetic snapping kind of thing that will help it. It's not what I wanted. That will help it stay in line. I'm sure you guys can all hear my cat. I am super sorry about that. She's begging to get into my room every time. The last time she wanted to get out of my room. Now she wants in. Just great. Okay. We're gonna do it for the R and for the T. I'm gonna try to be a little bit faster here so we don't waste all day on this. I don't think that it's gonna work super well for the V. I'll put one there just in case, but I'm thinking it's not gonna be, maybe it'll be the right angle for, no, definitely not. Okay, well, we're gonna leave it there, but that's definitely probably not at all going to work. We'll do a little rotating in a second. I'm also gonna put this for the Y, but it only needs to apply to the little stem of the Y here. So we can also come to our move tool, and we can tap on here, tap on one of the nodes and tap that little slash mark that I told you about, and that's going to add in another node. So we can see that here, this square, and I nudged it, and so it actually kind of like bumped itself. So we're just going to add that in again, and what I'm going to do is tap the top one, and I'm going to delete that. So now we've got this shorter stem, which is going to be great, but it's at the right angle. And then the Z is going to be in the same situation as the other one, so I'm actually not going to paste it there. But let's come back to our C here, and let's copy the C. I don't know why it says copy all, because there's only one there. But let's bring this to our G, because our C and our G are going to be quite similar. And we can just go ahead and draw. Maybe you want it to extend like this. Maybe you want it to be something like this. You know, follow your heart. Maybe you just want it to only go, like, be very clean and just go to the edge there. And again, remember, you can use the little mouse there to move these and really fine tune it. So totally up to you. Again, this is your font. This will be fun for you. I'm going to take the cross here, this little crossbar from the A, and I'm going to, I think, fine tune it a little. But we're going to copy this, and we'll bring this to our H, and we're going to paste it here because I want the height of these to be the same. So I think that's also going to help me decide my width. So I'm going to bring this in a little bit too. So for me, again, having a consistent font, I just like to reuse these different pieces, and they're going to be super helpful for me. Now that same piece I am going to paste here, and that's going to help me with the height of that bar on my E. So we're just going to drag that over. And let's see, are there any other ones where that would be applicable? No, I don't think so, unless you want to do like a cross on your Z for a stylistic choice. This should be good. Okay, so now I think what I'm going to do is I'll just paste that one again, and we're going to drag it up to the top of the E, but we need to stretch it out a little bit so you can decide how far out you want it to go. And then I'm going to just copy this piece. So let's grab that mouse again, and we're just going to copy it, and we're going to paste it, but then we need to drag it down. And I think just because of, let's see, with the B, right, we have the stem here coming down a little bit below the line, and same with the D. So we're going to do that still with the E. And I think that means that I'm going to drag this one down a little bit too. So I'm making it so it's got just a little bit of that part, like the stem like poking out, if that makes sense. Just like here and here. So now what we can do for the F is we can just copy all that's here in the E. And we're going to come back to our F, and we're just going to paste that. But of course, to make it an F, we need to delete this part here. So we're just going to get rid of that, and now we've got our letter F. Okay, so the I, you can decide if you want the crossbars on the top and the bottom, or if you just want just like a plain straight line. Again, totally up to you. I think I'm going to keep it without. And then for this one, for the J, you have the option, if you don't want to work with the nodes, you can take this as your guide for the angle, and then you can just draw a new J. And I actually think that worked out pretty well. The other alternative would be to start adding some nodes. So you could tap on one of the nodes and add another one, and then you can drag it over, and you can start to extend them down and rotate them if you feel like you want to play with the nodes. But if that's completely not in your wheelhouse right now, that's totally okay. It definitely wasn't when I first started. But I work a lot in vectors now, so I'm way more comfortable than I ever used to be. If you do take my sticker making course, you will become much more comfortable working in vectors. I will say that. It will give you a lot of confidence there. But I think that this I think this will do. I might just pull this out just like ever so slightly, just a little bit maybe. And I think that'll work for me. And now let's see, let's take the bottom of this E here and we'll copy this to the bottom of the L. I feel like that makes sense. And for the K, we can just start to draw this. So draw our K, and if you want you can like kind of extend it again, give it a little style, have a little fun with it. We'll come to our M, and I think I want this to be slightly less wide. So for visual purposes only, I'm actually going to copy all of this. I'm going to take this over and I'm going to paste this here. And I think I'll probably make my N the same thickness as the H, but the M is going to need to be a little bit wider or else it's going to be super crammed. So I'm going to take these outer pieces that were part of the original N, and I'm actually just going to delete those. So that was this one and this one. And of course I can delete the crossbar and draw a totally new one, or I can just grab those nodes and I can drag them. Now this gives like a really nice, I actually kind of like this. It gives, because I didn't adjust the nodes, it gives this sort of like little wave in the center there, and I actually think I'm going to keep that. But you could of course make it totally straight if you wanted to. I think the only thing I might do is just a minor movement there of that node, just so it's a little more smooth at that connection point. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is come back to this M. And I think I just want to see, like visually, the difference. So I don't think I want it quite that much wider. So I'm going to bring it in a little. Maybe just like a little more, but not significantly. So now we can delete these other pieces of the H that I don't want. Again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but for me, this has been really helpful over the years of font making and trying to get them more consistent, which makes it easier for me to mess with the spacing later on. So I recommend doing things like this anytime that you can use the other letters in the font. It helps just a consistent theme to carry through, but again, you can give it as much personality as you want. So if you don't want to do that, I mean, it's your font. You do you. Okay, so now we're just going to draw this, and I think I'm just going to play around with these nodes a little bit, and you can see this gets a little bit crazy sometimes, so if you want to delete some of those, you can. And I'm going to bring this one back over, and if you want you can do like a little curve, right, so that it's consistent with like the N. Again, totally up to you. This is your font. And I think I might have it go maybe about as low as like roughly the area where the M and the B were. Not the M, sorry, the B. And, you know, later on we can go in and fine tune more, but this is just kind of giving us a relatively consistent look for us to work with. I'm going to come back to my C in order to finish off my O. So we're going to copy all that's here, come to our O and paste it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste it twice, and then we'll delete the bottom one. So the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to mess with my nodes here in order to finish this. But you can see when I bring it up here, that now the rest of the shape doesn't really look like how it needs to look. And oh my gosh, my computer's gonna die. I plugged everything in and I forgot to plug in my computer. So, where is that plug? There we go. It was already up here, I just didn't plug it in. Okay, we're good to go. My bad. Okay, but now you can see, because we moved that node, that it like really messed up the rest of the shape. So what we're gonna do is just kind of pull on these arms of the nodes here, these control arms, until it becomes a smooth shape and until it meets the guides where we want it to go. So I'm gonna remove all of the little guides and stuff that were there just so I can visually see by tapping the paintbrush. And then let's see if I like that. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna delete this and come back. And I think that'll work. I think it's close enough. But I do think I want to do just a slight adjustment here. I just don't want it to move too much from that original shape because I would like the consistency. And again, we're staying underneath our cap height or like right at our cap height and our baseline to help us keep consistent. Okay. Now, what I want to do is, because this is my O, I'm going to use this to make my Q. So we can copy all that's here, come to our Q, and we can paste it. And now we just need to add a little line in here. So I'm gonna do one that's like a little swoopy, just like the K and the M and the N. We're just gonna give it a little bit, and the A, right? We wanna have just a little bit of that similar character coming through wherever we can put it in the font. Okay, also our P and our R are gonna be very similar. So what I might do is come from my B here, and we can copy all that's here, and we can actually, let's move this one, and let's paste the whole B. And with our cursor, again, grab this, and we can delete the bottom part of the B. So now our P and our B are consistent. And we can copy all that's here and bring this over to our R, and we can paste it here. Oh, sorry. Keep on the paintbrush, and we can draw our R like this. The other option you have, again, for consistency, if you can guess what I'm going to do, I'm going to come to my K. I'm going to select this and copy it and bring this over to my R and paste it. So now, again, consistency. I think there's a little bit of a trend here. The S, I just have to kind of do my best to draw something that's gonna go with this. So I am going to just write a sort of angled S. I think that's pretty decent. I just need to, you can also like pull down the whole shape if you want. It's gonna keep your stroke width consistent. And I think that that should work. We'll find out once we start to actually put the font together. But let's see, for the width of the T, I'm just gonna use the top of one of my like J's, or not my J, my F or my E. And we're just gonna copy this and bring it back over, paste it, and then we'll move this to the center. And you can decide if you want it to overextend, or if you don't want to do that with this letter. I think I'm going to leave it with that little bit of overextension, and if I don't like it once I put the font together, then I can just move it down and it'll be fine. But I'm going to keep it for now. Okay, this is another thing. You definitely don't have to do this, but if you're trying to keep your letters consistent in width, I am going to, for my U, basically I want it to be similar in width to my letter H. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. Again, you don't have to do this. You can do whatever you want to, but for consistency purposes, this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to delete that bar because we really don't need it. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to draw the U on its own, but I'm just going to use these as like visual guides. So I think that's actually pretty perfect. It keeps my angles right and it keeps my width how I want it. And then here is where things are going to get a little bit different. So I'm just going to rotate this, and then we're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it and rotate it again. This is going to give us what our X is going to look like. And I don't know, just kind of see what works. I almost feel like it's just not quite angled enough, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's whatever you think looks good. Again, you can handwrite it. I'll know more, like once, let's say I can write in here with capital letters. So I don't have a semicolon yet, but at the top you can actually preview this. So in the preview, we can take our, you can just tap with your finger and it'll pull up your keyboard. And let's put on our capital letters. I'm gonna put mine on my English keyboard. So I'm gonna double tap on the shift bar so it's all caps. And let's write a word that has the letter V in it, or maybe a couple words. So like, have a nice day. Okay, the Y is not finished. But do I think that that V fits? I feel like it looks a little too thin, and I feel like the angle's too angled now, which is surprising because I thought it was going to be the other way around. So we're going to come back. And this is a huge part of font making, is like always testing as you go. So don't be afraid to test as you go. That's definitely one of the key things to making it look good. We're sitting pretty at about 45 minutes right now, so I don't know if I should break this into an uppercase and lowercase video and just stop for now. We'll stop once we get to Z, or if I should just kind of push through for a little while. If you're here watching and you want to chime in, if you think we should do the lowercase letters on a different day, like in a few days we can do another live stream, we can do that. Or if you feel like you kind of have the hang of this app already, then we can always do that. I don't really need to, I guess. And then I can do a whole other video on like how you actually finish the font. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is a little bit better. It's still not quite what I want. So I think I'm going to extend this down a little bit, and I want these a little wider still. Just a little. Okay, we're going to do one last look. And I'm a bit happier with that. Again, I can always adjust this later. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to tap done, and I'm going to copy all of this, and I'm going to paste. And we can actually, let's use our transform tool, the little mouse here. Let's delete this. And then what we can do is we can copy all. And now is the time, one of the very few times that I actually use the gesture to scale or rotate this little tool here, because I can take both of these and move them over that way. And now I can paste what I just copied. And now you can see if I move them, they like go together. So what I might do is move this over a bit again. And I can just drag these over. I don't know. Maybe I will adjust the angle of this one a little. No, I don't like that. Again, trial and error, just like playing around. What I think, oh, I don't know. I think maybe I will, let's move this totally over here. I don't love W's in general. I think it's too wide, which is part of the problem. So maybe I will do, that's not gonna work either. Okay, what I think I might do, let's clear this page. let's paste this V. So I don't, well, we're going to copy it and repaste it here. And I'm just going to use this while I write my other one to keep it kind of similar. But I don't want it to be like so similar that it feels crazy. And I'm just going to take this one and I'm going to drag it over here. And I want my, basically I want my first and last pieces of the W to like match up with the first and last pieces of the V, but then the rest I think I can kind of fill in. So I can delete that node and this one, and also this one that's in the center here. And then also I can delete this one. Gets a little messy when you start to work with some of these nodes. But basically my goal here was to make it so that the intro to the letter W and like the outro to it, if you will, that it matches the V and that I fill in the stuff in the center how I would like. And you can also try to curve these if you want and see how that works for you. Again, it's your font. You can kind of do what you want with it. I think maybe I'll drag these down. Maybe they won't go up as high. But yeah, explore, have some fun. Maybe we'll move it over a little. Nope. I don't like that. I think W's are like my least favorite letter. I thought it was M's, but I think it's W's, which makes sense because they're similar. They're just inverted. That could be another option, would be taking the M and maybe inverting it. We're going to do this for now, and if I get really unhappy with it, I might take the M and flip it over and then see what happens with that. And I am going to take my V, and we're going to copy everything here and paste it to my X, and then we can move these over so that they cross each other. And if you don't like that, you could also use the other angles, which might have been a better idea. Again, once I start to see these in action, I will have a better idea of like what I want to do for consistency purposes, but this is definitely really helpful starting out. Okay, so I'm going to copy the V again, which could backfire. If I really end up not liking that V, it could totally ruin these other letters here. But I'm not going to do anything too major here. I'm just going to drag these up and then just make sure that the line is straight. You could also have just hand drawn this if you feel more comfortable doing it that way. And this X, I know I think I just need to move over, so we're going to use that, the 4-star arrow here to move those. And let's finish off with our Z. So we're going to, I'm going to end up adjusting these. I think I can delete that one. And the thing that you could do here for consistency purposes, which is probably honestly what I should do and what I'm going to do, let's take this one from the T and let's copy it. Let's paste it. And let's paste it one more time. And we're going to drag it down to our Z. We're going to drag this one over. And now I can kind of adjust this however I want it to fill in. All right. Excellent. So I think maybe we will probably do the lowercase on another day. And yeah, we'll get into the next live that we do. We'll get into doing the lowercase letters and the numbers. And then we'll get into the really fun part, which is going to be the actual like finishing of the font. So the kerning of the font, and then how you configure and build it in the end. So this is a good starting point. I think the next live will be in 3 days. So what's that? The 19th, January 19th at the same time, 8:45 p.m. Eastern time, we will do our next live where we work on finishing up this font. So it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see how this turns out. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you're watching this during the replay, I hope that this has taught you something. And honestly, if you're feeling confident enough, go ahead, finish the rest of your font, finish the other letters, and you can attend the last part of the live where we go over how to actually take what you've made here and turn it into a font. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. Thank you, May. I appreciate you. And yeah, we'll chat more about this font. We'll continue it. And maybe you guys can even help me name it. And I think anybody who wants to, once this font is complete, you can sign up for my freebies list. And I will actually put this in my freebie vault, and you can download this font for free. Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you guys so much. Again, I love you so much. You are the best. And of course, I have to offer a special thank you to all of my Patreon patrons. And yeah, thank you for making, contributing to me and my little business and making this possible. I love you guys all so much. All right. See you next time. Bye.